Hello, everyone, and welcome to Vilnius Tech Leads. For those of you watching for the first time, Vilnius Tech Leads is a meetup for various engineering leaders and other technologists. We discuss topics related to technical leadership. While those topics are most interesting for engineering leaders, engineers and other types of leaders find them interesting as well. Usually, we listen to 2-3 talks and then stay to enjoy drinks and food. For obvious reasons, we conducted the last couple of meetups and this one online. All our meetups have a theme, and today's theme is conflict. The word conflict is often associated with negative situations, but inherently, conflict is neither good nor bad. In fact, engaging in conflict can have positive effects on relationships and organizations. How do we engage in conflict? How do we manage conflicts when we see others engaged in them? These and other questions are ones we'll discuss today. And today we're going to have two speakers who are going to tell their stories about conflict. That's Karolis and Andrius. If during their presentations you have questions, please write them down in the YouTube chat, and I'll read those questions to Karolis and Andrius after their presentations. And now, without further ado, let me introduce Karolis, who's going to be our first speaker. Karolis, the stage is yours.
Yes, thank you. So just let me know when you can see the slides.
Yeah, we can see them.
Okay. So hello, my name is Karolis and I am from Danske Bank. First of all, thank you, Mindaugas, and the organizer for having me at your meetup. This has been a long time awaited presentation, I think since 2020 March, due to obvious reasons when it first was supposed to happen. And let's get to the topic. So what is conflict? Mindaugas mentioned that quite well, but I found a definition in Merriam-Webster, which is one of the most respected print dictionaries, and it describes the conflict as competitive or opposing action of incompatibles, antagonistic state or action of divergent ideas, interests, or persons, mental struggle resulting from incompatible or opposing needs, values, drives, wishes, or external or internal demands, the opposition of persons or forces that gives rise to the dramatic action in drama or fiction. So to summarize, conflict can occur everywhere and for anything due to different priorities, approaches, or expectations. And I would invite you to join the path I went through during my career and share my experiences from the perspective of conflict. And let's start with my first employer, Kesko Senukai. You would not be able to find a lot of people in Lithuania that haven't worked or had someone close to them working there, not mentioning buying something for their DIY projects, as Senukai has the biggest DIY store network in Lithuania. So throughout the span of almost 10 years, working from a consultant at a store to an IT project manager working on one of the strategic projects in the company, there were a lot of situations involving one or another type of conflict. The role I had for the bigger part of the career, so almost 8 years, there was officially information systems consultant and later on IT project manager. But compared to more usual split of roles in IT department, I was actually doing several roles at the same time. So business analyst, IT project manager, quality assurance, technical writer, product owner. And besides all these responsibilities, the challenges were that the culture in the organization was really based on command and control principle and a strong hierarchy. Any changes to the way of working were enforced top down. And if a person would raise some issue in order to make an improvement out of that, usually that person was understood as a troublemaker and might face various consequences from salary deductions to even getting fired. The best way to avoid trouble was swallowing the disagreements and conflict situations and moving on. And one of the important lessons learned in that environment was regarding the story about the project no one wanted. So this project was impacting all employees in the stores, logistics, sales, so more or less the whole organization. I had to report to director of sales, and the reports were usually short, with that person asking me questions to find some flaws in the data or process of system implementation, to be able to blame me for the issues with employees in the stores not adopting the new system. In these meetings, it seems you can cut the intensity in the air like butter with a hot knife. We were in a constant silent conflict. Usually the reports ended with me being mentally exhausted and blamed for a lot of issues. I felt no support and wish for the project to succeed from the director. I thought no one in the organization needed the system, and once I got into one of the stores to teach the personnel there to work with the new system, I heard whispering that I had been working here for long before this came and will continue to do so long before after this ends. And I thought it represented the real wish the users wanted the system. However, after some time, I started asking myself, so how this situation could be changed? And with some advice from the site, I started to kind of attack instead of being attacked. And in my whole body language, I showed that I did my best to deliver the system and I need more support from the director and authority to make it work. After that change, from my side, it didn't take long for the boss-employee relationship, which changed more towards partnership and cooperation to improve the project success. I continued to work on the project and we implemented the system. And the lessons got there was to make sure you support your words with trustworthy data and believe in your work and do not back down when things are hard. Moving on. Next stop is Binova Technologies, but my gig there was short and lasted just a bit longer than half a year. It was an interesting ride and it involved some difficult people to deal with, but for the sake of sharing cover stories, this time I will skip those. And next up is Acme Group, where I spent less than 1.5 years. And there I had the role of IT project manager, but similarly to Senukai, it was a split role, doing business analyst work, quality assurance, and then IT project management. The challenge for me, having a large experience from before in command and control environment, was the total culture of freedom. Of course, we needed to deliver, but the atmosphere there was like we all came there just to have fun, and work was the second priority. I often had doubts when to put pressure on deliveries as we all were having good time working together. There were also some conflicts of interests in regards with subordination, which made it really difficult to manage projects and deliver on deadlines when we had outsourced developers having close connections with people high in ranks in other companies in the group. Getting to the story part, I was responsible for managing several projects with different stakeholders, but the main focus of the department, to no surprise, was on key system eShop that was the main generator of revenue. I had a colleague that was like the main project manager there and was a know-it-all person with zero tolerance to someone not knowing something. And I think the term "there are no stupid questions" was out of scope for that person. We were working on separate projects and I was not able to successfully establish good professional relationship with that person. And it impacted my motivation and also had some negative impact on relationships with stakeholders from projects I was responsible for because of the authority the person had for my main stakeholders. It was also a form of silent conflict, but back in the day, I was not aware of OAPS, here, or any other feedback model, so I just didn't know what to do. The person was known across the organization with that behavior, and people just tolerated it. So it may sound like a failure that you would want to forget, but the tables have turned in a manner that I needed to leave the company, and actually it came for the good. And here I am at my current employer, Danske Bank. I am working for more than 3 years now. And let's start with the role of business analyst and a Scrum Master, and you will shortly understand why I couple these together. So the roles I had here were closer to the usual roles in IT development. I was working as a business analyst in a Scrum team, developing solution for internal users in the bank and also doing quality assurance. I often saw some points for improvements, and we in the team usually tried implementing them. But at that time, they were rather small improvements. The challenges there were that I wanted to get work done right, so I did not do enough knowledge sharing with team members and had high expectations on others, assuming they will deliver their work. And the story to share can be called the one about having our ambitious expectations. We had the new Scrum Master joining, and I was expecting a lot of improvements to the way we work as soon as possible, basically because of the experience person had from before. But 3 months into development and before the user acceptance testing of the solution we had been working for 6 months, there were significantly less changes than I expected. And as Murphy's Law say, if something bad can happen, it will happen. And one day at the end of Friday before the weekend, when on Monday we have the user acceptance testing with 20 plus users, I learned from one of the developers that we have a critical issue in the system, which takes longer time to fix than the time we have until Monday testing. I was working from home, so I couldn't see how many developers are still around and are able to fix the issue. And I started brainstorming plan B if we are not able to fix the issue on time. I also reached out to our Scrum Master, expecting that person to have some plan B via email, but it turned out the Scrum Master is away for the day and I only got short replies to the options I gave that did not help much to solve the problem. I saw we as a team are going to hit a wall that is closing in on us going at a car with a high speed. So I reached out to the person in charge of the delivery and the product owner, myself, and we agreed on the plan B to postpone the testing if the issue would not be solved by Monday morning. This whole situation and some frustrations after the dust has settled about the way Scrum Master was helping the team on deliveries made me write a really specific 4-point list email explaining the issues we had and asking for stepping up and helping more. I would call it have feedback, have specific improvement points, focusing on the situation and not the person. However, I got an answer I didn't expect that basically told me not to tell what needs to be done without further comment. Eventually, we postponed testing for one day and were able to complete it and release the solution. I also had a conversation with that Scrum Master after all that happened, agreeing to cooperate more, but it was more of a Cold War agreement than the agreement to do through collaboration. So the lessons learned were that I should not assume in that case that every person in the role cares as much as I thought he or she should about the work done, and I should be vocal and really specific in my expectations. As a result, this conflict sparked a powerful motivation to step up in Scrum Master shoes myself and try some of those ideas I had as a business analyst. After what happened and things not improving, I thought I was ready to take on the Scrum Master role and started to look for opportunities. Almost at the same time, there was an announcement in my part of the organization that there is a recruitment going on for a new Agile coach, and I thought I could even jump one step ahead from business analyst directly to shoes of Agile coach. Once I shared that whole story I had with the Scrum Master to my manager, and my wish to step up into Agile coach shoes, I was lucky enough to have really wise and supportive manager that was able to channel my frustration towards action to improve. First of all, I was explained that if I think I am ready, it might not be really the case. In fact, I need to demonstrate those things that I thought I could handle, actually doing them and handling those issues Scrum Master or Agile coach faces. And it was done in a respectful and an enlightening manner, and I'm grateful for that to my manager very much. So what we agreed on is to create a self-development plan that would enable me to eventually transition from business analyst to Scrum Master. And I had to investigate with other Scrum Masters in the department and outside the bank to understand what skills make a Scrum Master awesome at their work. Based on that, I measured my skills and saw some gaps that I would want to close before actually taking on the role. All this allowed me to actually work on some issues that Scrum Masters face instead of just thinking for my own how good I am. Eventually, it turned from some custom-made spreadsheets to a 70-20-10 model for learning and development that was originated by Lombardo and Eichinger. So this is the more zoomed in picture of that individual development plan. And actually, in some occasions, it has driven some behavior from me that I had not been that much known from earlier, like volunteering to represent department in management sessions, participate in various initiatives, events inside and outside the bank, and so on. Going forward, this whole situation and trying to continue my understanding of what a good Scrum Master is also helped me to learn how important feedback is, both receiving it, but also providing it in a non-conflict and supportive and motivating way. And that is why I wanted this slide to show that feedback is king. Moving on, all of this suggested me to find wisdom outside, attending various communities, and that is also how I found Vilnius Tech Leads. If in this regards you are facing some conflicts such as those mentioned, you are not alone, and just listening to someone's story like you are doing now might help you get ideas that could help you find answers to your problems. Also, I would advise to find a mentor, someone having gone through similar issues you are facing. Having another perspective or specific tips from someone outside the situation really helps. And going to the last stop, my current Agile coach role that I'm in for 7 months now. And here there is a still long way to go to make some tangible outputs regarding conflicts as compared to the mindset I had once I volunteered for this topic, and now is totally different. I see conflicts now as opportunities to improve myself and help others in doing so by understanding the root causes of those, being honest, transparent, accepting negative feedback, and learning from it. And as I consider myself structured and would like you to take away some tips and tricks for conflict management, here's a couple slides for that. So first of all, I would suggest to learn some on the feedback models like observe, explain, pause, suggest. Here, explain, acknowledge, refocus, and many more. These cover both giving and providing, both receiving and providing feedback. Also, conflict resolution strategies from PMBOK, all those avoiding, accommodating, compromising, forcing, collaborating. And also have in mind the Tuckman stages of group or team development, where if someone new joins the team, you are brought 1 or 2 stages back, even if you are a high-performing team already, and need to climb back to a high-performing team again. And also have in mind Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team, where at the bottom you see that the absence of trust creates the fear of conflict, and this eventually leads to inattention of results and preventing the team to be high-performing. And some key takeaways. So I would suggest to inspect and adapt on the conflict situations and understand the root causes of that. Do not assume, be clear on expectations, and do not try to change other people. Learn to work with those different kind of people and keep upgrading your toolbox. And just to finalize, so thank you very much. And you can use this QR code to find me and connect on LinkedIn. Yes.
Thank you, Karolis. Like a couple of questions. So one question is, you talked about a couple of situations, how you decided to engage in conflict. How did you decide to engage in conflict, and how do you decide to engage in conflict now?
Yes, so earlier it seemed for me that a conflict was something like I am being attacked and I need to defend, not maybe seeing any positive sides of that. And now let's say if I get some, negative feedback or just some almost slap to the way I'm working, I kind of try to understand the root cause. So that is exactly how the whole approach to the conflict changed from this like defensive state and trying to find some flaws in that argument that I'm being given to actually seeing some opportunities. I would say it like that.
Cool. Another question is, you talk about the Cold War situation with the Scrum Master, I think. How did that situation evolve afterward? How did it end?
So to be completely honest, I think we were able to have the level of, well, professional relationship as it was needed, because we still worked on the same deliverables and stuff like that. But I would say from the more, emotional and like team spirit perspective, we were just in that Cold War state until I actually left for another team. So it didn't solve out to some tangible outcomes.
Okay. And one last question we have from Anastasia is, what is the best resource for people who want to dive deeper? Some books or articles?
Regarding any books or articles, I would not have some of them right now to share, but maybe first of all, I would suggest to go through those that I kind of mentioned here. And then I think after running into those models, you would be able to find some books that are kind of describing them in a more specific way. That would be my thought.
Okay, thank you, Karolis. And now, while Andrius is getting ready, I'll just mention that our friends at Build Stuff are organizing an online course with Patrick Kua. And if you're a technical leader, you're probably aware of Pat Kua. He has a couple of books. He has a very strong online presence, and is someone who I've personally heard speak multiple times and came away impressed. So they're organizing, and the Build Stuff folks are organizing an online course with Patrick Kua, and I'll share the link to that course in the chat. And they gave us a coupon code, leadership10, that gives a 10% off to that course. And now, Andrius, I hope you're ready. Your turn.
Hey everyone. I hope you're able to hear me. And let me start sharing my screen. Okay. I think it probably does work. Okay, so very excited to be here, first of all, this is a chance for me to connect with Lithuanian audience after a while, for this chance, I want to thank Min and to congratulate him as well with creating community with so many members. I think it's already more than 2,300 members in Business Tech Talks, and as a former say operator and founder of other popular group Product Time, I was always kind of competing with Mindaugas, but now there's just no competition. This is such a big and great group, and it's a privilege for me to speak here today. First, let me introduce myself. I love leading product teams that build products that are used by many people, so mostly consumer products. I was extremely lucky to join a company that probably most of you know, Vinted, quite early. I was head of product there together with Ingrida, my key partner, as well as part of the executive team running the company. Later on, I moved to Asia and joined a company called Carousell as a VP of product. There, we grew a peer-to-peer marketplace from something that was dominant only in Singapore to a platform that was leading in Hong Kong, Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, as well as present in many other markets in the region. A while ago, I came back to Europe and joined Booking.com as a director in the pricing area. And now, starting last week, I started my journey as a product director for ShopPay at Shopify. Sorry. For the last few years, I had a chance to live and breathe different cultures. And I'll share today 5 different conflict situations that I have experienced in Vilnius, Singapore, Amsterdam, very different environments. And in these situations, I was either directly involved or let people experiencing them. And some of the details I changed in order to preserve privacy of individuals involved. But all of them created lessons that drive at least some of the decision making for me so far in my day-to-day work in leadership and so on. Let's start with the team at Vinted. The team I'm extremely proud of, and the team that I think grew a lot in recent years and are leading multiple products right now. And this is a team that I also let down multiple times, but I was kind of the first time head of product, first time executive. And I want to talk about one of these situations today. This is a situation that illustrates kind of a typical scenario in an early stage startup between a product leader and the CEO. So I had a CEO coming back from a trip far away with a very great idea. And the idea was, let's add more categories to the marketplace. And this was very much out of the blue. And I was very set to do something else. I wanted to do the video in the marketplace to make sure that the sellers can present their products in the best possible way. And I got into a conflict situation with the CEO because this was something that we were set to do, something that made sense. And now suddenly there's a very different thing that does not really make sense. I didn't win that conflict, and I didn't really resolve that. I just went to the team after a bit, and I said to the team, CEO said this, we have to build this, we don't believe in this, and this probably will not work, but we need to listen and we need to build. And this was not the only situation like this that I had that I reacted in the same way. But as time moved on, I realized a thing that a team starts kind of to skip me, starts to work with the CEO directly when they can, start to get his kind of opinions and stuff and I was slowly becoming irrelevant, in situations like this. And kind of in the particular moment of time after another conflict like this, I realized that the problem is kind of that belief and that ownership of the idea itself. So I was not really making an effort to resolve the conflict in question. I was not trying to understand the other side and the motivations of the other side, and as well as not bringing these motivations to the team. And this leads me to the learning that it's very important for a leader to believe in what they do, and to embrace and first understand the why, and then to embrace it as much as they can. And in this particular case, the CEO wanted to build more categories because we were just thinking that there's no way the company can be profitable and survive only on the category set that we had. So we had to do something more in order to generate a lot more revenue per customer and reach profitability at a certain point. And I actually had to face the conflict to understand why. And recently I was reading the book called Extreme Ownership that I think explained this concept of being a believer and importance of being a believer in the first place. So if you're looking for something to read after this talk, I definitely recommend this book, and I'll have more recommendations as I go forward. Next, let's move to my journey at Carousell. And there, I worked in Singapore, and I worked with a lot of different nationalities. And this is where really the cultural differences came to the picture. So this was a team that was mostly Chinese. but quite a few people from India as well, and a few people from France, Ukraine, and the US, and so on. So pretty multicultural crowd. And inside this crowd, and together with this team, we're trying to build a dominant product in the region and potentially in the world. And this led to interesting situations. I'll share a couple from there. So the first one was quite early in the journey. Like I was working with a PM who was pretty junior, but like very, very high potential. And we quickly came to realization that we need to increase the visibility of new sellers to make sure that they're very successful, because the new seller success is usually key for marketplaces like Carousell as well as Vinted. PM was trying to think, okay, how we're going to do that, but she knew that we need to actually deliver around 3 times more visibility for this to kind of create an effect that we want. Then she went into conversations with engineers, and during these conversations, there were multiple solutions being talked about and so on, and they ended up with a solution where 1 out of 10 slots in the search results was allocated to the new sellers. And that solution was the most simple one to implement. That solution was based on the average that we had in the region in terms of the new seller presence and so on. But it really didn't take into account that, for example, in the market that we're going after, Hong Kong, we have a lot more new sellers and so on. So the end result was actually that we reached less visibility for new sellers instead of increasing that visibility with the solution we went after. And then when we were looking into this, why did it happen and so on, and we essentially saw that solution quickly drifted towards something that was even worse than what was discussed initially from the PM side or what was initially offered from the engineering side. So here, I would even have, I even have a concept which is related to the colors of the rainbow. Rainbow is very beautiful. There are many beautiful colors in the rainbow. But what really happens when you mix all of these colors? I don't know if Mindaugas is still here, but maybe Mindaugas, you want to offer a guess. What happens when you mix all the colors in the rainbow?
So wait, it's either white or black. So black, right?
No, you're thinking from physics perspective. I want you to think from art. So imagine you have all of the, colors stained, and you try to mix all of these colors.
So
what do you get?
A mess? No.
Yeah, kind of a mess. You usually get a very ugly color like brown, brownish, and so on. So it doesn't look good. And I think this was exactly the situation that we've faced. And for me, this was actually a lesson about trying not to mix the colors of the rainbow, and to understand when you actually are in a situation where you are not resolving the conflict, you're just compromising, and the actual compromise goes down to the end game, which is essentially a step back from any kind of potential solution. This was also a result of cultural differences. On one side, we had people who were avoiding confrontation, and were also emotionally not expressive. So they were not showing that they disagree. On the other side, we had people who were a bit more confrontational, but a lot more emotionally expressive. So very, very different kind of groups of people coming together and trying to find a solution. And then one part in that group that was actually responsible for end outcome didn't show that, as well as didn't confront the reality that the end solution is not something that is going to work. So that was a lesson learned. if you want to dive more into differences between different cultures as well as how to deal with them, like there's this book called Culture Map. I haven't read the book myself, but I read the excerpts, and as well as I'm using some of the concepts. But I heard that the book is very good. And I have it to my list out. Next situation is a situation of conflict leading to pretty bad outcomes. And this is a situation where we had an experienced commercial leader and the newly built product leader, working together. And the start of that relationship was pretty good. But quite soon it unraveled into a pretty big conflict. And it was the conflict about what to build. So it might be somewhat similar to the conflicts that Karolis described in his own presentation just a while ago. So from one side, commercial person wanted to build tools for real estate agents because this was the audience and the kind of the people that the person knew the best, and thought that this is the biggest lever for growth to make sure that this group of people is happy, and satisfied, and can operate efficiently on the platform. However, the product leader was really a consumer person, and they intuitively focused on the buyer experience and making sure that this is really great. And they just couldn't agree with each other. And it escalated to the level where they couldn't work together. The commercial person wants to drive things into one direction, the product person wants to drive things to a very different direction. And what is the end result? The end result is actually that things are not moving forward. And this went so bad that 3 months later, neither of them were leading these fields. So we had new leaders taking these roles and actually achieving progress. And both of these leaders were actually less senior than the people that were there in the first place. So what could be learned from this particular situation? I think a lot of us, and me included, we chase things for the sake of truth, and we think truth is very important, and we should always go for the best solution that we think of, and so on. Although the truth is vital, progress is actually a lot more important, because progress is the only way to be sure that you're right. So the fastest way to understand whether you're right is actually shipping something. So even if you ship something that you disagree with, it actually brings you closer to doing something that you may agree, or you may be a champion of, or you learning something new. And that is something not a lot of people realize, and that's surprising. Fourth situation actually came to my view quite recently, and I didn't really felt that situation was as bad as I think it actually was, when I was experiencing it, but I was pointed to a Medium article, and the person pointing me to that article thought, okay, what is this person that our former colleague is writing about? And that person is me. This is a situation where I am described as someone who is a cruel leader, and the person was going through a pretty rough patch, working with me, and you can read here part of the story in the in that Medium article, and I'll summarize that situation in the nutshell, from my perspective. And this was about feedback, and this was about growth feedback. Diana is a designer, and she's originally from Taiwan. And she joined the company as a senior product designer, and very, very high potential person, and growing right now very fast. Now she works at Facebook. However, like, the way she presented her work, the way she communicated her work in our company was not great. Like, it was really, really difficult to understand what she's trying to say, what she's trying to communicate. Like, and I've tried to deliver that feedback to her. Like, and the way I delivered that feedback was actually pretty blunt and resulted into pretty hard reaction, like that she describes in the article. And short, she perceived this as a personal failure, and I think that it was close to letting her down in terms of her growth. Like, so I was not achieving my own objective of growing person. Fortunately, this improved as things kind of evolved and time passed, and she grew into design leader that she was kind of destined to be. Like, but I think if I would have created even a bigger conflict, that potentially could have led to very different outcomes. And that I was very close to that, I think, dangerous outcome in that particular situation. And the lesson learned for me here is really about the aggressiveness and the level of aggressiveness you can apply in different situations. Like, I personally subscribe to the principle that you need to balance the two approaches. You need to be aggressive, but at the same time, you need to be kind as well. That's, in my opinion, the most effective approach in leadership and growing people. Like, but it's a very kind of slippery line, and it's very easy to cross that line. And I think we all need to be careful when we engage in conflict, because there is this chance to push too far and shut the other side down. Like, the last lesson learned from me and the last situation is about the feedback as well. Like, and this situation is also in a multicultural environment where people take kind of a very, very different approach in terms of providing as well as receiving feedback. Like, we had a situation where we had a person working on one of the most important features for the company, one of the most important programs for the company, like which had a chance to deliver a big part of the company's revenues. Like, unfortunately, everything that was happening in the team, almost everything, as well as what the person was trying to do, always came out much later than expected. Like, and there were reasons behind that. Like, and the product leader that I managed directly tried to resolve that situation. And but the way he tried to resolve the situation, being coming from US culture, like, he tried to resolve that through taking a very positive angle and then delivering the bad news. Like, and that sounded roughly like this: great, launching this new program that's going to be big, amazing job, but we should have done it sooner. Like, and then the product manager, who was actually coming from a lot more direct culture, from India, was taking this as, okay, thank you. It was a hard thing, like, and, but we've done it, and now it is successful. Like, and fast forward a few months, and similar conversations. Like, the situation evolved into something that was not changing. Like, things were still happening late. There were a lot of misunderstandings, and it was time to deliver something that was a lot more harsh in that particular case. Like, and more harsh is that going into performance improvement program, really structured feedback and kind of performance management process. Like, and that was a big surprise to the person who was a product manager, like, because he genuinely felt that he's doing great because 80% of the feedback that he was receiving was actually positive. And the lesson learned here is that when we talk about performance feedback, which is actually, I think, different from the growth feedback that I described in the previous station, you really need to be a lot more direct and blunt. It really works best when it's loud and clear. And gaps in performance need to be addressed clearly. And in this case, in this particular conflict, that conflict was just not being resolved, and not being faced until it was potentially too late. And this kind of gap in performance assessment between the manager and the person is nicely addressed in the book The Art of Leadership, written by Michael Locke. Otherwise known as Rand's in Response, blog as well as his Twitter account. So to sum things up, 5 lessons in international combat that I've experienced. First, really embracing the why and being a believer in what you do. So you really need to go through the conflict to understand, why certain things are being built, and hash out the reasoning of your own ideas and so on, to make sure that something that you'll need to build, you understand clearly why it's being done, and you can embrace it and present this as a believer to the teams that you lead. Leadership without the belief is very hard. Second is about not compromising to the extent in conflicts that result into something that is actually worse than the starting point from either party of the conflict. So not really mixing the rainbow to end up with the end result is worse than the colors of the rainbow itself. Third piece is about progress being more important than the truth, because progress actually leads to the truth. I'm not saying go and ship all these wrong ideas and so on, but I think we as people often overestimate our kind of measurement or ability to discern the truth. And sometimes it takes time, sometimes it takes going to market to understand what is true and what is not. Fourth, aggressiveness needs to be combined with kindness, and it's very easy in the conflict situation when you want the best for people, actually to make the situation much worse than your starting point. And the fifth is about serious performance issues. These are the conflicts that need to be faced as early as possible and resolved clearly, where both parties understand that there is a gap that to be addressed as early as possible. That's it. This is everything I wanted to share today, and I'm also open to answer any questions there may be.
Thank you, Andrius. We have a couple of questions. The first question is, you mentioned in the story that ended up with new leaders, that new leaders were less senior. Could you expand?
Yeah.
How can that be? It seems that one of the skills that makes someone more senior is successful conflict resolution.
This is correct. I think in theory this is true. But there is two I think areas for that. One important part is that you need to be successful in resolving conflicts that the people you lead face. Second thing is that you need to be successful in dealing with conflicts yourself. And I've seen in the past in myself, as well as in other leaders, that these two things are not necessarily coming together. So you may actually show good skills and seniority in terms of how you resolve the conflicts in your team, or how your team deals with others, in that certain situations where you have the fire burning in your own head, and you need to go through this yourself.
Okay. Another question is, well, in a lot of organizations, engineering and product experience a lot of conflict. Engineering wants to fix the technical debt, product wants to create a new feature. What are some of the more important things to manage that conflict?
I think one important piece is sharing the context. Sharing the context includes product person understanding what engineering is doing, being technical enough, flip side of that is engineer being interested in the customer, in the product, and in the business that's being created. What I've seen in multiple situations that I've been in the past, the less there is overlap, the bigger is the conflict, because the context is just not shared. So if organizations are super specialized, super kind of in silos and boxes, they inevitably program themselves for the conflict between product and engineering, between product and business, engineering and design, you name it. That I think is the key.
Gotcha. And we have one non-conflict related question. What are some of the most common red flags you've come across either on candidate's resume or initial interview that you advise future product managers to avoid?
I think I'm choosing a red flag that is related to conflicts, as this is the subject of today. And quite a lot of people perceive product management and the role of product manager as being a mini CEO making all the decisions. The red flag is when product managers think that they make the call in terms of what to build in any stage, and they don't have an answer when they shouldn't be the ones making the call, when someone else should be making the call. And if we go back to that situation that I described between the commercial leader and the product leader, and this could be a situation between engineering leader and product leader and stuff, person making the call should be the person being closest to the customer, closest to the problem. And in that particular situation, it was actually commercial leader that was closest to the problem. And understanding the industry best, understanding both sides of the market is best. And the product person was new. They didn't even have the context in the first place. So they shouldn't have been making the call.
Clear. And Andrius, thanks again. And that's it for today's meetup. Karolis, Andrius, thank you again for speaking. Thanks to everyone who helped organize this meetup, and thanks to everyone who participated in this meetup as viewers and as question askers. We have more meetups planned in the future. You can find all the information by going to techleads.lt. And I really hope to see you next time. And I sincerely hope that the time is near when we can meet each other face to face. So again, thanks everyone. Cheers, have a nice evening, and see you next time.
Thanks everyone. And thanks Mindaugas for inviting me.